Hey, it's me, Egbert. Egggburt. Check out my website at eggbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
John is a St. Louis County resident, as he's talked about for the last couple mornings. He's tried to vote. You tried to vote, what, Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, and then...
You're right.
And then finally, yesterday, you broke through the log jam. How long did it take you yesterday?
It took me exactly 1 hour from the time that I got in line to the time that I voted. And Brad, I used the St. Louis County web app. Or I should say I happen to use the mobile app, but I guess you could use it on the web too. That gives you the approximate number of people in line at any given point. And within, a 20-minute, 25-minute drive of me, I looked at all the polling places, and I found one with the shortest line, which happened to be the Willowick Library. There's a library up around off of Fifi. You know where I'm talking about, Brad?
Oh, yeah. That's in the Maryland Heights area.
Yeah, Maryland Heights. You're right. So I drove to Maryland Heights, and I got in line, and it was almost exactly 1 hour from the time I got in line to the time I voted. And it was really well organized. It was a quick and efficient process when I got in there. The election workers were dressed in Halloween garb.
Interesting.
Which was cute. One of the women was quite milf-tastic, and she had little kitten ears on, which I thought was cute. And it was overall a really good process.
There are people that just don't get enough credit. Those people that work the elections, and quite a few of them are retired, because of the fact that it's not the kind of job you report to every day. There's some training and stuff like that. I know a couple of people that do that, but that's a long day for them. I mean, they get there early and they stay late, and you know what? And it's like anything. Anytime you deal with the public, 80 to 90% of the people are good, nice people. 10% are not so nice, and then the 5% are buttheads. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean. And just to think about it, especially an event like yesterday, our lines there were only an hour. But by the time, if you're sitting at one of those tables, by the time somebody comes to you, they've already spent an hour in line. They're probably late. If they took time off from work, they're probably late getting back. They're probably starving to death. They're probably wondering about what the heck they're going to do with their kids on Halloween, and you don't see the best of people in those times.
Right. And it's sort of sad. Now, how many people would you say when you got there, even though the line was the shortest one, how many people would you say were in front of you when you got there?
The estimate was 135, I believe.
135 people were in front of you?
Yeah. And now the other polling places nearby me, Brad, had numbers in the 180s to 200. And by the way, the time that I looked, I got on the app right at about 10 a.m. So imagine how much longer it would have been at the lunch hour,
Well, I drove out there yesterday. And by the way, for those of you who may not know this, there's a back way into the area right there for the voting. The big problem is we're talking about the headquarters out there, the Election Commission on, what is that, Turner? I keep forgetting that. Turner?
Yeah, it's on Turner. In St. Charles County, you mean?
Right. So in other words, the problem has been that the exit ramp from westbound 70 onto 79, Salt Lick, whatever you want to call it, has just been jammed up back into the highway. Yesterday was no exception. The back way, and this is from Brad, the ex-traffic reporter, is you get off at Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, you go north of Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, and I don't know if you people know that or not, they redid that Salt Lick Road, and now Mid-Rivers Mall to the north runs into Salt Lick. You make a left on Salt Lick. It's now a 4-lane road for most of the drive. That takes you all the way to 79. You get on the ramp to go south in 79, and then you get off the ramp right there to get to the election headquarters. Now, I did that just to take some pictures and just see what it was like. Even still, it's a mess. And part of the problem is, as you come out of the election, you can't get back on the southbound 79. You have to either go on the north outer road, where I don't know if they still call that West Clay out that far out. I think it's East Terra Lane or West Terra Lane or something like that. Or you have to get on to 79, go north, U-turn at Salt Lick Road and come back down. And I have to hand it to him. St. Charles County Police has got an officer out there directing traffic at the intersection where you turn down, coming off of the ramp from 79 onto that, it's by a new storage place right there. You go in the Turner. But still, yesterday, jammed all the way down south to the 70 overpass, and the construction there doesn't help any because they got the bridges down the one lane. Just a mess. And I don't understand it.
Here's what, just thinking out loud here, Brad, based on the conversations that you and I have had over the last few days. Here's a freebie idea for incoming House Speaker John Patterson. One of the committees he should create a special committee or add it on to an existing committee, have some Democrats and some Republicans, particularly in areas like Kansas City, Jackson County, St. Charles County, come in and ask election officials, hey, what happened with early voting? And what are you going to do between now and 2026 to ensure that that doesn't happen again?
Well, you would think, and I know we've talked about this before, that it's been brought up. I know Kurt Barr has sort of taken a lot of grief over this, a couple different things. And by the way, they're in court this morning at 9 o'clock. And if you don't know what's going on with that, was it Travis Hines? Was that his name?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
he's the plaintiff in this case, and there are people already, pointing fingers at him, saying he has ulterior motives. I don't really know, but now it's to the point where apparently this has sparked an interest in the observer status all over the state of Missouri. And I thought this was settled legislation or settled regulations, whatever, that it was always the way, because when you vote, you have the two election judges right there. You have a Republican and a Democrat right as you register, correct? I mean,
yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Right.
You have judges, but then you can also have people that come in, one Democrat and one Republican, to observe the judges.
So what is the problem with that? I don't understand that. Why is there
I'll tell you exactly why. Because do you think in St. Louis City, at every polling place, you have a bona fide hardcore rock rib Republican?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. They have a tough time finding Republicans in the city of St. Louis.
They can't, and in defense of St. Louis County and other counties in Missouri, good luck finding a true hardcore Democrat in Mississippi County in the Boot Heel.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying.
The process is in place to have somebody watch the watchers.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, what's the thing with the Washington Post? Democracy
dies in darkness.
Right. So, which is ironic because of the fact that we both know what the stripes of most of the journalists are. And this whole thing, yeah. I found it interesting that, and this is not a put down to you, but I found it interesting that when I turned you on to the Jeff Bezos op-ed, that you found that interesting as I did, because essentially he's calling out the journalists. He's calling out the people working for him, saying, look, you're not as important as you think you are anymore. Get off this high mighty, oh my God, we're journalists, when you're not telling the true story. You're being very biased. Just like I've got to talk about something. Maybe if we'll talk about this break, or maybe you want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, let's talk about, what is it?
Okay. I'm going to throw something out to you that, believe it or not, as the nerd that I am, I knew what they were talking about. There's a show that runs on KWMU, St. Louis Public Radio, between 6 and 6:30 every day. And whenever I listen to it, I always think of you, John, because it's this show called Marketplace. You familiar with this show?
Oh, yeah, NPR Marketplace, sure.
Right. Well, it's actually not NPR. It's run on NPR, but it's run by American Public Media or something like that. It's one of these organizations that is like they're like their own little network within a network, and NPR distributes the program for it. And there's a guy, I love the guy's name. The guy's name is Kai Rizdal. And I think to myself, what a cool name that is. And not only that, he's an ex-Navy pilot. I think he was I don't think he was a fighter pilot. I think he was like a C-141 or a C-130 or C-9 or something like that pilot. Okay. Yesterday, I'm driving along and I'm punching buttons, and it's obviously between 6 and 6:30. And I punch the button and I start doing the various things. And they have interesting things. They have guests on, talk about the stock market and the economy and stuff like that. They go into this 10-minute dissertation on Schedule F. Now, do you know what Schedule F is, John?
No, it sounds like some kind of a drug.
Okay, Schedule F is, and actually I do know about this, and don't ask me why I know about it. It's just this crazy weird thing. This is very controversial. Schedule F is, and let me read, I'll pull this right off of Wikipedia. Schedule F appointment was a job classification, the expected service of the United States Federal Civil Service that existed briefly at the end of the Trump administration during 2020 and 2021. It would have contained policy-related positions, removing their civil service protections and making them easy to dismiss. It was never fully implemented, and no one was appointed to it before it was appealed at the beginning of the Biden administration. This law literally became, it was a order by an executive order by Donald Trump. The executive order was signed on January 19th of 2021. Does that date ring a bell with you by any chance?
Yeah, it does, right? That's his outgoing day, correct?
That's the day before the inauguration. That's his last full day in office. And the order was rescinded on January 22nd of 2021. Guess who that was? It was rescinded by
Joe Biden. So it existed for one day. And the way you describe it, does it have something to do with like patronage employees? So in other words, you could fire, somebody would exist at will and you could fire people without much protection.
What it did was it reclassified. And the interesting part of this is that if you read the whole interesting story, it's actually a fascinating thing. And don't ask me how I knew about this. I've heard this before. But what it did was it reclassified civil service workers to the point where they were sort of declassified out of being a civil service worker. So the civil service workers, if I've even talked this morning, the civil service workers have protections so they can't be, a new administration comes in, they fire everybody and they hire all their buddies.
Yeah, they're bringing their own buddies in, right? It would be like a Tashara Jones administration or a St. Louis Public Schools administration. Just bring your friends in and enrich them.
So you get to be the new superintendent in St. Louis.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
From Seattle, and you bring all your friends in from Seattle. Okay. So they went on this 10-minute thing about Schedule F, Schedule F, Schedule F. And the crazy thing about this is that Trump has already talked about this. Now, the bizarre part of this is in this dissertation, they're doing this 10-minute thing in the middle of marketplace. I'm going like, okay, I tuned in to hear stock market information, not crap about, if Trump gets back in office, Schedule F is going into effect again. The crazy thing about this is they bring up Project 2025. I don't think this has anything to do with Project 2025. I'm not sure because if you read the entire Project 2025, I think it's like 950 pages long or something like that. And if you know the whole story, it was drafted by the Heritage Foundation, which is a Republican think tank, and the whole bit. So essentially what this comes down to is Trump has always complained about the swamp. And what Schedule F would do, it would give him the ability to reclassify some employees. So essentially, if he didn't like the way things were going, or if there was lack of, a movement in a particular department, he could just go in and say, okay, you're no longer civil service, hit the road, you get your 2 weeks notice, get the hell out of town, you don't have a job here anymore. But this whole crazy thing about, and you see it, and what's very sad to me is my classic example. Years ago, I'm standing in line to pay my taxes out in St. Charles County. And the two women who are working the two windows side by side, they're having a conversation about the fact that the one woman went out to a restaurant the night before and her husband had a terrible meal and the service was bad and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't that the food was bad. It's just the service was bad. And she's talking back and forth as she's waiting on customers. And I'm overhearing this conversation. And she says to her husband and her go to find the manager of the restaurant, and they demand that waitress be fired because she was terrible at her job. So by the time I get up to the window, the conversation pretty much ended, and I said, hey, what if I come here and I get bad service from one of you? Can I complain to your boss and get you fired? And she goes, no, you can't get us fired. We're government workers. And I thought to myself, okay, it's okay for you to complain about the service you get when you're out in the private sector, but the government workers, we're untouchables. And I think that's what Trump was trying to address. Now, once again, that the kind of thing that, in a situation like this, Trump is not hiring every single person. In this case, if this Schedule F thing were to go back into effect, he's going to probably say to one of his minions, hey, if he does get reelected, hey, you know what? We need to get rid of some of these people. They're the swamp. Get rid of them. So that guy's going to call up his buddy and his buddy's girlfriend and his buddy's, ex Pilates instructor or something like that. Hey, we got a great government job. Come on down and apply. I'll give you a fast track into, and you can make 5 figures, maybe even 6 figures. You get a great government pension. You get government health care, and you get every imaginable holiday off. You get weekends and holidays and all that kind of stuff. You know what? I can see it both ways. You know what I'm saying?
I do see. And you know what? It might be a mistake, though, Brad, to think that this idea originated with Trump. We know that he is creative. We know that he hates the swamp. But it's also possible that he had somebody in his administration that came to him just a few weeks ahead of time and said, hey, you know what would really mess with these people if we did X, Y, Z? And he's like, love it. Do it. Make it happen. Love it. That's the greatest idea I've ever heard for the swamp. Right.
It's just like, and once again, will I ever stop torturing myself this morning? I'm listening to NPR, and once again, I'm out driving around this morning. I was out early this morning, earlier than normal, and they're doing and let's go into our campaign reporter, and they bring some, what did Rush Limbaugh call them, reporterettes or info babes?
Oh, news babes. Info babes. Yeah, info babes.
Info babes. And she's going on, well, this has been a tough week for Donald Trump because of the fact that and she barely mentions the fact that Biden called the Republicans we're all garbage, and then the interesting thing about this is, have you heard this crazy story about how they've revised the transcript and the official stenographer of the United States is complaining about the fact that the Biden administration has overruled the stenographer's pool or whatever?
Yeah, because I mean, you it's kind of like 60 Minutes. You take what actually happened, and then you can't allow the real raw version to get out.
Well, they're essentially saying that the Biden administration have overstepped their bounds, that they're not allowed to revise the transcript, but they have, to make it sound like, Biden really didn't call the American people, at least the Trump supporters, Republicans, trash or whatever, or garbage or whatever. Matter of fact, I was looking on my Facebook page this morning before I went on the air, and I'm seeing like various people, and you know what it seemed like? One of the most costumes I've seen. There were 2 versions of it. You ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
The construction worker vests and garbage bags.
It's so good.
I'm going
I saw that all over Twitter too, and I think even either the Mark Cox team or the Annie Fry team, I think it was Mark Cox's team, I think they all went as garbage. I think that was their thing.
They called themselves Garbagians, which was funny. We're the Garbagians, yes. and it's the Kardashians. And by the way, can I give you a little thing because of the fact that I knew several people from school that I went to that had the IAN name. You know what that means?
Oh, is it? No, I don't know what it means.
If you have the IAN at the end of your name, almost every one of those people has an Armenian heritage. In Armenia, almost everybody's names ended with IAN, just like in Italy, everybody's name ends with a vowel. Did you know that too?
I did know that. Yeah, I knew that the Kardashians were Armenian. I didn't know that was unique to Armenia.
Yes,
that's interesting.
Because I had 2 friends in school. One was named Madeline Totosian, and she was Armenian, and another guy by the name of Paul Bogosian. And once again, they both explained to me that almost everybody who came from Armenia had an IAN at the end of their name. Interesting.
I recognize their name from the credits from your film, Board of Education. I recognize their name from the credits, Brett.
Yes, I bet you did. Okay, time for a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?